pondering a lot these last couple weeks on this idea of being still. And I am not a person who does still very easily. I'm an introvert and I'm kind of a homebody, and I can do like sitting on my couch watching TV really easily. The idea of being still with my thoughts, still with the Lord, like that quiet intention is really hard for me to do. And it's funny because several years ago, when I very first started working in boarding schools, I was teaching a leadership class with some of our more senior students. And one of the activities that I did is I told them, go find somewhere on campus to be and to just sit with your thoughts. I didn't tell them how long I was going to have them out there, and I didn't give them anything specific to think about. It was just this idea of sitting and being quiet. And how when we don't know how long we're supposed to be out there and quiet for, it's really hard to just sit and be still. Because we can maybe do it for a little bit of time, but then we start thinking, well, how long have I been out here? How much longer am I going to need to be out here? What else should I be doing? Like, our minds can just go to places so quickly. And that idea of keeping our mind in one place with one focus, quiet, decluttered from the stress of the world, is really, really hard to do. And I know for me, like I said, I can certainly have a rest day. I can sit on my couch in my pajamas and watch TV for a whole day. But that's very different than quiet, intentional stillness with the Lord. And one of the things that I've been really trying to implement this year in 2020 is an idea of Sabbath. And while I have not spent extensive time researching Sabbath or listening to people's podcasts on Sabbath, like what Sabbath has done in my life since starting it just a couple of months ago, it has really allowed me to be more grounded, more centered. It gives me space for the things that I need to make space for. And the funny thing is about Sabbath is that we can fill that time with all sorts of stuff that seem Christian or seem restful or seem like self-care. But Sabbath and self-care are different things. Now, I do a lot of self-care things on my Sabbath, but I remember when I very first started, I was in the middle of writing some curriculum for church and getting ready to teach a Bible study. And I thought, okay, well, that's a good thing to do on my Sabbath because it's going to be studying the Word. It's going to be spending time with the Lord. And I'd met with my pastor, and I was telling her that I was starting this practice of Sabbath. Well, that's great that that's what you want to do, but you do realize that that's not necessarily Sabbath. That, again, not that those things can't be a part of Sabbath at times, and there are things that have to get done on your days of rest, right? It can't just be all this pulling away and spending literally 24 hours away from your life. Because the house has to get cleaned and groceries have to get bought and things have to, life has to continue to happen. But the purpose of Sabbath is to pull away from the things that are draining, to pull away with God, to be refocused, to be poured into. And it's a time of reconnection. Because we can do our daily devotions, our daily quiet time. We can have these rhythms in place in our life that allow us to be connected with the Lord throughout the day or throughout our week. But there is something really different and special about intentional, purposed time away. I had heard a sermon that our pastor gave one time where if every one of our interactions with the important people in our life are always just the pass-bys, the like, oh, this is what I'm doing, what's on your agenda today, I'm grabbing groceries, you're doing this. If it was always just that kind of task list, catching each other up on our day, we would be missing something really deep and rich in a relationship if all you ever had was the surface level kind of what's been happening in your life. If you never have those times of deeper connection, of rich conversation, of just sitting and being together, you can still have relationship. It just looks very different. And so what I have found in implementing Sabbath in my life in this year, which granted we're only a couple months in, but still it's been really good, is not only does my body get physical rest because I'm taking one day to not schedule any big things, right? I still might grab groceries, I still might do some meal prep, I still might get errands done, but I'm not scheduling a bunch of things. It's a day that on my calendar literally says Sabbath in my planner, and I don't schedule anybody or anything on that day. Now, a coach that I had, we were talking about Sabbath and how for some people you can do that same day every week sort of thing, where you just know that that is your day of rest. And again, it is purposeful, intentional relationship building rest. So it's not sitting in my pajamas numbing out on TV all day. Sometimes it does mean catching up on some of my shows because that is part of my rhythm of rest. But there is also intentional time with the Lord to be refilled up. There's time that I'm spending just in worship. There's time that I'm spending reading books that I really enjoy or that cause me to think differently about my walk with God. So I have little Post-it notes that say Sabbath in my planner, and they can move. Because sometimes I had planned to have a certain day as a Sabbath, and it's the only day I have a private practice and I do therapy, and it's the only day that somebody can come in. So I might move it to a different day, but I don't ever throw the Post-it note away. It gets moved to somewhere. It is still time that I purpose to set away. Some days, some weeks, I end up with 2 Sabbaths in a week. That's this coming week. I have it on Thursday and I have it on Sunday. Thursday and Sunday. Because of just the things that I'm doing. But this coach had said that he and his wife set aside 52 Sabbaths a year. Because in their life, it can't always be the same day every week. And some weeks get a little bit busier. And so for me, as somebody who is newly trying to implement this rhythm, this strategy into my life, this discipline into my life of taking a day of rest, for me, that seemed manageable. And it allows me to have some flexibility because the job I work some weekends, I have a full-time job and a part-time job, and I'm trying to mesh them all together. And some days, some weeks, it just happens that way, that things have to get moved around. But they get moved before the week starts. So when I write out my plans for the week, I know what day that Sabbath is. It's not like, oh, is it today or tomorrow? Like, it's set a week ahead of time. And again, it's not that I don't do anything, but it's a rhythm of life that I think is important. We can get so busy and our time can get filled so quickly. And if we are going to be in relationship with God, then we have to make space for that relationship. So if you're somebody who Sabbaths, I would love to hear more about what that looks like for you. What does your Sabbath entail? How do you make space for it in your week? Are there resources about Sabbath and how to do it that you would like to share? Because I would love to learn more. Again, this is a new spiritual discipline that I'm putting into place. I did it really well in college. One of my freshman RA made a point to say, like, you need to Sabbath. And so I set up my schedule where I would get all my homework done early so that I could have Sundays. For me right now, Sundays is not the most restful day because I do ministry at my church, and then I see clients in my private practice on Sundays, and so Sundays is not typically my Sabbath day. But it has allowed me to just feel more grounded and more okay being still. It's interesting because I kind of call myself a TV addict. true confessions, and this slightly embarrassing, but you're going to get to know. Here's a peek into Matina's life. Started when I was in college because I love watching TV, but I didn't have like cable or whatever. When I was in college, I'd have to watch stuff streaming. And even now, but way bit back then when streaming wasn't as big of a thing, you couldn't watch anything on the day that it came out. It was sometimes a day later, but usually a whole week later that stuff came out online. And so because I'm an Enneagram 1 and I'm a logical, planny kind of person, I made a spreadsheet for myself so that I could keep track of like which episodes I had watched, because I didn't want to get, if you're watching something that's got a storyline, you don't want to get ahead before you'd seen other things. So, yeah, that's kind of embarrassing, but I still do it. And what's funny now is, though I have a lot of shows that I really enjoy watching, I fasted TV. For our church does 21 days of fasting and prayer at the beginning of the year, and I fasted TV, and some of that has allowed me to let go of shows that I just really didn't need to be watching, that weren't really good or good for my mind, just weren't things that I needed in my life. But it's interesting because I also, in that process, through not watching as much TV and starting this rhythm of Sabbath, I find myself, even when I have time where I could sit down and watch TV, I want to do other things that are more life-giving. I want to spend time crafting. I want to spend time reading. I want to spend time doing other things. And I'm loving that. I'm loving what that's doing for my soul. It's keeping me more grounded. It's keeping me more present. As somebody who has also walked through addiction recovery, it can be really easy to live in your addiction, to live in kind of fantasy land where you're not necessarily as actively present with all of the things, right? Because when you're living in addiction, you're trying to escape something. That's part of what addiction is. You're using it as an escape. And so I'm finding that I don't want to escape my life. I don't want to escape what's happening. I want to be incredibly present for the people and the situations that I'm walking through. And I'm loving that rhythm. So I encourage you, but is not part of your life rhythm, your life routine, to try to start doing that. And it can be small. I'm an all or nothing person. I'm really I either jump full force into something, or I'm like, nah, can't do that. Don't have time for it. So finding ways to make something digestible, to make something fit, so that I can see the benefit of it. So when my coach had said, I do 52 a year, and sometimes they get moved around, that was like a brand new concept for me. Sticking the word Sabbath on 4 Post-it notes and moving it around in my planner is freeing, but it also keeps me doing it. It brings me back. And now that I've been doing this rhythm for about 3 months, 2.5 months, I don't want to let it go. It's important to me. I'm seeing the benefit of it. And so I'm now finding space for it. Where at the beginning it was oh, does it fit here? Does it fit there? What if I don't have it for a week? Is that really a big deal? It's a big deal. I will fight for my Sabbath now. And I'm hoping that that's something that I can really continue to incorporate into my life rhythm. And again, I know that it's going to look different when I get married. It'll look different if and when I have kids. It'll look different in different seasons of life. But taking time to be still, taking time to pull away, taking time to invest in my relationship with the Lord, and knowing that the other things in my life will fall into place, that there will be space for the things that I choose to make space for, that's a big deal. Sabbath is all throughout the Bible. It may not say the word Sabbath all the time, but Jesus modeled pulling away and being with the Father. And if Jesus can find time to pull away from people and pull away from the responsibilities of life, so can we.